Kum Len and Ablat Gemara, we're Moed Katan Daf Tezvav Amar Aleph. We're going through a number of dinin, and we're talking about an oval, comparing an oval, a mitzvah, and we are comparing someone who was put in chayim. So we're comparing all of those things together, and we're going through each set of dinim. There's a number of dinim now. We know what we're going to say. The din so by this person, what would it din be by that person? So the last thing we learned was about taking haircuts. And we learned that none of them are permitted to take haircuts. Okay. And we're up to here about 6 lines on the top of the page. Oval chayiv ba'atifa sarosh. An oval has to wrap his head around. They used to wrap the head around the top of the head, and then they would also wrap the scarf around their mouth and part of their nostrils. That's what an oval does. And how do we know that? Not, I won't say does, did. How do I know that? The Abisha told Yecheskel that your wife is going to pass away from a plague, but I don't want you to follow all the laws of Avelis except this. So from the fact, everything that Hashem told Yecheskel they shouldn't do, that means all our Avelim do it. So we learn a number of din of that. And he starts with telling him that you should be you should grieve quietly and don't go ahead and do like other people. You should keep your splendor on your head and you keep your shoes on your feet, and do not wrap around the leisata al safam miklaus from here learn all other avelim mechayve. Now the Ramah writes a Shulchan that today we don't do that. We don't do our toughest Ishmael. And why don't we do that? Which is interesting. A lot of the din that we don't do today is because either we live amongst goyim and they'll scoff at us. They'll scoff and say, "What in the world is this?" So therefore, we don't do that. So, but however, the poskim say you should, even though that's not on anymore either, really, is that they should wear a hat, and the hat, the brim, lower it, to cover part of your eyes or something, a bit lower on your face than usual, so it looks like you're rapping. So Moshe said, fine. What about menuda? What about somebody to put a chedim? Do they also have to wear this this thing of wrapping around? Ma'u bativ zarosh. Avon said, Toshma. Come and I'll prove it to you. It says the Hain mis atrin by a time after 13, after all the fast, and still didn't and it didn't start raining yet. So this is what they do. Mis atrin, they wrap themselves around, but yoshvin, they sit kimenudin, they sit like those who are in chayrim, because Abe is angry with us, we committed an aveir, and therefore he's punishing us, who kavein like mourners. Until Abe still will have rachmanas. So we see clearly that we are. It says clearly that you mis atrin. Like someone in chayrim. So chayrim also wraps themselves around. Amalei Abaye, who said there's different kinds of chayrim. There's a chayrim that where a bezin plays on a chayrim for being disrespectful or for doing something wrong or defying the edicts of the bezin. And then there's the Eibishter that he punishes us, it doesn't make it rain. Dilma menud l'shemayim shiny. This is the chayrim the Eibishter punishes us. Maybe that those punitive measures is a much harsher, and therefore we have to wrap ourselves around the face. But maybe ordinary chayrim doesn't. The chomer. So we don't answer. So we don't know. Mitzvah. What about a mitzvah? Mahu me'ativus rosh. Mitzvah doesn't have to wear rosh or doesn't have to wear rosh. Toshma coming here. It says va'al sofam yat. It says in the pasuk there by mitzvah that his clothes should be torn. His head should grow. And al safam yati, he should cover his lips. Clear. You have to cover yourself with your lips. Mamina, so clear from here that it's a good proof. Says the Gemara. So we know for sure that a metzora and an oval has to wrap around the face, but we don't know. We haven't resolved what happens when it comes to a menuda. And then there's the pasuk can say that maybe it's rabbanon, so we are more lenient. Others agree. Oval also next thing. Oval also near tefillin. An oval is forbidden to wear tefillin. The Torah said to Yecheskel, I want you to continue to wear your splendor. In contrast to all other women don't. And what splendor? We're talking about tefillin. The cloud, the kuli alma, also everyone else is forbidden. Now the Mepharshim already asked, how we're talking when we say an oval doesn't wear tefillin, we mean only the first day, or the day of the first day, the day of the Kvura. And the following morning after Netzach Chama, you can put on tefillin. We don't say after Moed Shachar, we say after Netzach Chama. And there's an argument. Some people say that if you wear a Beit Tam tefillin, you don't wear, but we do. But the question is, everything we learned by Avelis is 7 days. So why, when it comes to tefillin, is it only 1 day? If we're learning from Yecheskel, then we should say that an oval shouldn't wear tefillin for 7 days. And the reason is because tefillin is such an important mitzvah. We cannot imagine that we're not going to allow them to wear tefillin for 7 days. When it comes to learning Torah, as we'll soon see, and Abel doesn't learn, but there are alternatives. There are other things he could learn that are much more suitable. But when it comes to tefillin, there's no alternative. So either you're wearing it or you're not wearing it. Menuda. Someone would put a chet in mouth with tefillin. Can he wear tefillin? Teku. We don't know. Mitzayra mouth with tefillin. Tashma. Coming here, it says in the pasuk v'hatzerua. It says, and the one who was a leper and it has leprosy in his clothing, his clothing should be ripped open, and his hair should grow, and so on and so forth. And we said, what is v'hatzerua? And the one who's a leper. What does it come to say about? So we learned yesterday that the hatzerua come to include a kohen gadol also as a mitzayra. The rabbis kohen gadol to be his clothes should be ripped. Torn, and his hair should grow. Ain't pri alagidul sad. It means that hair should grow. Dear Rabbi Lezer, what does that have to do with tefillin? We'll see in a minute. Rabbi Kiva says no. Rabbi Kiva says nemra. It says havaya beroish. It says that roisha yiyeh perua. So the word yiyeh should be, his hair should be perua. The nemra havaya bebegin, by clothing. It says begod of yiyeh perua, his clothes should be ripped. Ma havaya murim bebegin. The clothing says havaya is outside of your body. Af havaya beroish double chulgufa. When it says it by your head, that that roisha yiyeh perua doesn't literally mean your hair should grow. It, or maybe means both, but also means something outside of your body. What's on top of your head? That's outside your body. My lava tefillin. He's talking about tefillin. That what your head should be revealed from tefillin. In other words, your head should not have tefillin. So we learn that Mitzayda does not wear tefillin. Amar Papa, no, maybe not. Maybe loy akumsa, so they may talk about special hats. You know, Tamil Chacham used to wear special hats. Sudra Gemara said Navi Psachim, Sod Hashem L'Reav. So maybe that's what they shouldn't be wearing. Nothing to do with tefillin. So we don't know tefillin regarding a mitzayda. We don't know tefillin regarding an oval, regarding a menuda, but an oval does not wear tefillin the first day. Some would put on tefillin b'tzina, hiddenly. Oval also b'she'ila shalom. An oval cannot say hello. They come to David said, I want you to grieve, and be quiet. In other words, don't go into conversations. Again, here we say there's a whole difference between the first 3 days and the last 3 days. The first 3 days, you don't say anything. The last 3 days, we say, if someone says shalom, you answer back. We're not talking about Shabbos here. We're talking about just during the week. And again, people today are much more relaxed about these things, because when the oval talks, it's sort of very therapeutic. That is able to talk about the deceased and make the oval feel much lighter in heart. Menuda, Mao b'shila shalom. What about someone in chedim? Can he say shalom? Toshma coming here. Shalom. When it says that when it comes to saying shalom, this is again more timeless. There after the 13th fast, how we conduct ourselves. When to say hello to each other between one another is just like people who are been excommunicated or been marginalized from Hashem, been excommunicated by Hashem. So again, we see chayrim, you don't go into conversations, and you don't bid hello. I'm going to buy you again the same question as before. You give me an example from the Eden that were put in chayrim by Hashem. Maybe that's strict to the chamir. We don't know. So when it comes to menuda, we don't know if you can say shalom or not. Mitzayra mahu b'shila shalom. What mitzayra? Can he have a conversation? Toshma coming here. It says al safam yata. It says al safam yata. It could have said safa. On its lips, you should wrap yourself. We have safam. We learn another thing from there. That your lips should be sort of sealed, should be closed. In other words, you shouldn't say hello. You shouldn't get into conversations. Should be like a menuda and oval, but also b'shila shalom. Shema minach. So it's clear to me that the mitzayda does not say hello. Now the interesting question is, it says clearly the mitzayda should be like a menuda, like a chedem. So we said before it's unresolved whether someone who's put a chedem can say shila shalom and say hello. Clearly here it says he can. It says that we should behave like a menuda and like an oval. Now what? That you don't say shila, you don't say shalom. The nif shemenei so why do we draw from menuda? Doesn't say she awesome. Doesn't say that it's forbidden. Doesn't say that it should be forbidden. It says it should be like a menuda oval. The milach is certain things it's like a menuda, certain things like an oval. Doesn't mean that. And v'asam nami b'shila shalom. It says here, the wording in the Braisa is he should be like a menuda oval, and you're not allowed to say hello. If a menudi now say hello, then it should have said also by saying you're like a menudi oval, and then separately it says and don't say hello. Sounds like when he said we're comparing you to menudi and oval, is only is regarding the tzaras. We're saying the mitzvah. That's like menudi oval is in general. And then when it comes to Shila Shalom, it's not like a Menud novel, maybe. Maybe a Menud, the law is that you could say Shalom. So it's not resolved. So Mitzvah can't, an Oval can't, and a Menud we don't know. So you went further, Oval also, baby, Oval cannot learn Torah. When Hashem says, Doim, he said to him, I want you to grieve quietly. What do you mean quietly? I don't want you to learn Torah. It says, Kude Hashem Yisharim Esam Chalev, learning Torah makes you happy, and during Avelis you're not meant to be happy. So therefore, it's clear that and this is the only thing that he followed, applied with as a novel, a Yecheskel, and therefore all of Elim kept. But obviously, you can learn other things which are sad, which are more suitable for including Masechta Moed Katan, especially what we're learning right now. That's why I told you that many people did not learn Moed Katan on their own, and they didn't have to. Menuda Mao B'Divitor. Can a menuda learn Torah? I'm going to be able to touch by coming here. Menuda shoyne. This says the price. A menuda can learn, can teach. The shoyne a menuda can teach others Torah, and others can teach him. Niskar, he can be hired out. V'niskarnula, he can hire others. Muchram, but if somebody is a muchram, and what's a muchram? Is a step higher than nidui. We'll see more later. Different than nidui, shamta, nidui, and that. What do you call it? That's called nachash. Nidui, you ever see the lashon nachash? Nachash, when you see that the Rabbanon get very angry, they do nachash. Nachash is nidui chayim shamta. And nidui is you don't listen to chachamim. And chayim is according to Rashi. If 30 days went by, you still didn't go ask Mechila, didn't do anything to rectify the problem, then we put in chayim. Other Rishonim say it's 3 times, not just after once or 2 times. But once you're in the next stage, you're muchrim like shayna. You cannot teach others like shayna. Learn about you and you cannot be high. I will show you lots, but you definitely learn on your own. But he can learn on his own because we don't want to stop learning Torah. So clear, because menuda has nothing to do with mourning Avelis. Avelis is Pekudei Hashem Yishar time to play. We don't want you to be too happy. By here, we don't want you to interact with people. So definitely you can learn Torah. And furthermore, he needs a basic panos to survive. Saying so, you make him a small little business. What can he do? He can sell water a lot with the packs of their others. He can just place with packs and they sell water, make a few dollars. Shema Amina. If this is the marketplace over there, they would sell water rights. Okay, Mitzayda, Madu Taylor, some of the camera Taylor. What about Mitzayda? Mitzayda, Taylor, not Tashmak come near. It says, by Taitum, you should teach your children, your grandchildren, and tell them about Game Hashem, Maratov, Neshachim, Bechayda, that they used to before Hashem on Har Sinai. Malahalam, just like over there, the Ema, over Yido, the Resses over there, just like over there, with fear and trembling and awe and so on. Mekan, Omru, and trepidation has, for him, as follows. Anyone who has Yidush Shemayim should learn. Hazovin, somebody's a Zov. It doesn't take away from the Yidush Shemayim. Or Hamad Tzoyroim, doesn't take away Yidush Shemayim. Or boiling, these are talking about it by accident. His wife suddenly became in the middle of the relationship. All of them, with Todding, Likra, they can read Taita and the Beam of Sugim because they still have that aim of the Yidush. They still have Yidush Shemayim. But because something happened to them. With Todding, Likra, Taita and the Beam of Sugim, Rashad, the Medish, and the Shas, they can learn Medish and the Shisha Siddur Mishnah and the halachas, agodas, everything. But a balei kerian asuri. But somebody is a bal keri, which means that he, as Rashi explains, because he has no Yidush Shemayim, he comes because he was overjoyed and he was taking things very lightly. Is so therefore he has no Yidush Shemayim. So Cliff made that Mitzayra can learn Torah because he has Yidush Shemayim. Shema. The only question that I have here is, Tais already asked, but the person is about Kedi himself. Boil neither he's about Kedi. I was talking about obviously he went to the mikvah. So Tais, what I don't understand is Mitzayra, as we always say, comes because of Mora Erech and that's well, comes because of Lashon Hara. Or seven Averes that he did. So what do you mean that he has Yidush Shemayim? His behavior, okay, the Tzaras itself is not a sign of lack of Yidush Shemayim, but the cause of Tzaras was because of something that he did that lacked Yidush Shemayim. Let's say Lashon Hara, let's say murder, or other things the Gemara says for them. So why is it that Mitzvah can learn Torah? Unless there's a difference if it's only a cause. The Tzaras itself is not something that you did. The Abisha did that, but the reason why it came about it because you did another error. Versus carry the carry itself, the thing that makes you tummy, the thing itself is a lack of Yiras Shamayim. Maybe that's a distinction. Let me continue. Aval also the Tachbaises and Aval's not allowed to roll under his clothes. See what it says like this: that after Shalom and the whole fight with Amnon, so Yoav and David banished Avshalom from his premises. Yoav wanted to convince David to take it back, so he convinced this woman to come along and speak to David HaMelech. So he told her to pretend as if she was a mourner. He sent to the city of Koya, and he called this woman. He took this very wise woman. He said to her, he said, do me a favor. I want you to pretend you're a mourner. Believe she not big the will dress the clothes of an oval, and he says a few things that she should do, and that's how we learn also things that an oval should do. Do not smear oil on you. He said to Isha, and behave like a woman who for many years or many days is mourning her husband. So what do we see from here? That what? She wear clothes that look old. That was not laundered. So we see that an oval cannot launder the clothes. Misabeles almes. Okay. Menudi, that's part of the process. Menudi in the Mitzrayim, my hand. Okay, what about someone in Cheder? What about Mitzrayim? Shema, Menudi Mitzrayim, so it's happening in the Chabad. It says clearly in my Mishnah that a Menudi Mitzrayim now is a Gekut, nor can they want. Shema, Menudi, so it's clear. Okay, Abel Chai Bekriya, and Abel has to do Kriya when they hear about them, even if they went at a time of Shlo Kriya, they come like Mother Teish, and they add and Leisi Freimu. The Teish said to add and Leisi Freimu. When Nadav passed away, he said, I don't want you to rip your clothes. She's all other Rabbeim, you should. What about Menuda? Okay, Nobel has to do Kriya. What about Menuda? Ma'u Kriya. Somebody put in Chedim, does he have to also do Kriya? Rip his clothes? Teiku, we're not sure. Mitzayda Ma'u Kriya. What about Mitzayda? Does not come here. I said, Apostle. The God of Yeprumi, it says that his clothes should be ripped. Shemikuraya should be ripped. Shmamina. What was the Gemara's question? It's a clear pasuk. There's a long name chinuch there, and basically it's an interesting question. By an oval, it's the act of doing kriya. You have to do kriya. If you pick up clothes that already are torn, you're not going to be yaitz. Question by Mitzayda. It says of a god of yiprum, his clothes should be torn. Can you pick up clothes that are already torn, already have cleaned it, and that's good enough? So you're walking around showing that you're a Mitzayda, or do you actually have to do the act? Is it the toil of Kriya, or is it the nipple, the outcome? And that's the Gemara's question. Maybe when it comes to Mitzayda, you don't have to actually rip it. It's enough to be ripped. And the Gemara wants to say that you have to rip it. An oval, next thing, an oval has to turn his bed over. But in those days, the beds were like not just a bed to sleep on, but also to sit on everything else. Turn the bed over. Hashem says, I gave them my image, like it says in the Pasuk, and because of their sins, I turned it around. So kaful mitasayim. So therefore, I want them to go ahead and to turn the beds over as well to symbolize because of their sins. So we see you have to turn over the beds. Now they can eat on the turnover beds. The rest of the time, Shmuel says they have to sit on the floor. And today we have these very low seats, which are below the tvachim. And the way Shmuel says is everybody should be sitting on the floor. In fact, you should be sleeping on the floor. And they're allowed to eat on the turnover bed. Why don't we turn over beds today? The Ramos says two reasons. Again, one is because we live in a glacial society. They might think that we're doing witchcraft. All of a sudden, turning over the beds, they might think that we're accuse us of doing witchcraft, and we got to be very careful about that. And remember that Ramah lived in the Middle East, in the Middle Ages, and those very difficult times. So the Goyim any pretext would Chas Hashem go and harm the Eden. So you can't give them that pretext to say that we're doing some kind of a kishus. Also, the Ramah says that the beds then were different than today. And therefore, turning over our beds does not achieve anything. Menuda u'mitzayra mahem because you need to take. We're not sure if that turn over the beds. Oval also basis malachim. An oval is getting back to before. By an oval, when we do kriya, it's a sign of mourning. So the act of kriya itself is the mourning. By a mitzvah, it's mainly like a symbol, like an advertisement that this person is a mitzvah. So when it comes to the advertising mitzvah, don't do with avelis. So maybe there's no need to the act of kriya itself. It's sufficient to have the advertisement. And that was the Gemara's discussion before. And we say that you also need to do the actual kriya. Oval also says malacha. An oval has to is what he thought is not allowed to do any work. See what it says, and if you remember, we learned yesterday, we talked about Tosfos that even if Avelis, according to the opinion that Avelis is Mahatera, but not working is not Mahatera, that is only Midrabanan. Even though we're going to bring a pasuk right now, but it's Tanakh, it's only Kabbalah, it's only Asmachta and only Kabbalah anyways, and many hold that Kabbalah is only Drabanan. V'afachti chagechem le'evel, I will convert your Yom Tovim to mourning. Ma chag osam malacha, like on the Yom Tov, you're not allowed to work. Af avel osam malacha, a mourner is not allowed to work. Menude mahu b'asiyas malacha, can someone who's put in chedem, are they permitted to work? Rabbi Yosef Toshma coming here. When they say that after 13 fasts, we don't want you to work, if there was no response after 13 fasts, we say that no, everything has to change and we have to behave in a very morose way. When we say you shouldn't work, it's only by day you shouldn't work, but by night you can work. And it says that the same thing applies to a menuda, someone put in chedim, uba ovel, and an ovel. Sounds like that what? That a menuda also cannot work. My lavakulu. So no, there were other things mentioned over there about wrapping your head, that after, if it didn't get response, this is what you do. So maybe that is like a menuda. Who said that every single din that we do after 13 fasts with no response, that every single din applies to menuda? Maybe some do and some don't. Toshma coming here. Menuda, shoyne, v'shoyne loy, niske, v'niskani loy. Toshma, we learned a menuda is a shayna, a menuda can teach others v'shayni loy, and he can be taught niskar v'niskarin loy, that he can be hired out and others can be hired to him. Shmami, no, isn't that clear that a menuda can work? Okay, what about a mitzayda? Teku, not sure about a mitzayda. And we looked already before about an oval not working, and we spoke about a shutfus and everything else that he should. The Pesach Tshuva, says by a oval who brings some chuvas. I'm safe and others. It brings that to an oval who has a partnership. So during the avelis, if the first he starts saying that if the person is still alive and about to pass away, and then you just say I'm no longer a partner for those 7 days, that's the best thing. And then you don't get any of the profits then. But if later on the guy decides to filter the profits back to you that you got this week, no problem, because it's called havlah. It sort of got absorbed and he's meichel, no problem. And then he has a discussion if after the person passed away, if you want to sell it out, it's called haram as a trick or not. And basically, bottom line is he says at the end, even though it's not ideal, but if it's done, it's done. And a lot of people do that. Oval also, but an oval is not allowed to bathe themselves. It says, and Yoav told this woman, I don't want you to smear yourself with oil, and we know that bathing yourself and putting oil on yourself is the same thing. Menuda ma'abechitza. What about menuda? Can you bathe yourself? Oh, Rabbi Yosef Toshma coming here. Kish amru also bechitza. When they said that you're not allowed to bathe yourself, the amru, when they said you're not allowed to bathe yourself, again, we're talking about after 13 fast days, is amru el kogufi. You're not allowed to bathe the entire body. Aval panov yodav v'raglav mutab, his hands, his face, and his feet. He's allowed to. V'chein atomoitze b'menuda. The same thing applies to menuda and oval that you're allowed to wash your pon of yodav v'raglav. So we see, but the entire body not allowed to. My lava kulu, talking about the rest. And we're talking about here not only hot water but even cold water. Now, interesting, in Shulchan Aruch he brings that this din of not taking a bath is for 7 days. But then Shulchan Aruch Ramos says that it really is for 30 days. And for 30 days you shouldn't be taking a bath in hot water and only pon of yodav v'raglav in cold water. Which today, almost everyone argues that taking a shower is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Because you're mingling in society and everyone else does it, and therefore it would be wrong that you are not hygienically there. My lava cool, so okay, so again, we don't know what the thing would be by a menuda if you could take a washes overnight. Not sure.
So can I ask?
Yeah.
So if you're allowed to, a novel's allowed to have a shower these days, does it have to be a cold shower?
It definitely has to be different than what you normally do during the week. So, so the way you're different is a few ways. If you take a shower every day, try to take it every second day. Even the water shouldn't be as hot as always. Use very little soap. You should make all kinds of shenuyim that, so you know that it's your oval. You just do it the necessity.
Thanks.
Oval also, not everyone agrees with what I just said, by the way, that there are some rabbanim that say when the 7 days of Avela, definitely you shouldn't take any showers at all. Only, and even for Erev Shabbos, the only time that might be a little bit more lenient. So it's not straightforward. But generally, if you look at it, you'll see the differences between the rabbis in Chutz La'aretz and the rabbis in Israel. In Chutz La'aretz, because we mingle in society, and that became a norm, so they look at it differently how we look at a shower. Just so you mingle mainly with Eden, and they would understand it. You know, so the rabbanim generally are much more strict when it comes to these things. Same thing with the 9 days in Israel; they're much more strict than in Chutz La'aretz. Same reasons. Oval also been ilas sandal. Oval's not with shoes. How do I know that? Hashem said that your wife will pass away, but I don't want you. I want you to continue wearing shoes. Place your shoes on. Everyone else shouldn't be wearing shoes. So okay. Menuda Ma'u. What about Menuda? Can he wear shoes? Or Toshma coming here. It says Kisha Amru. After those 13 fasts, no response. Also, ben ilas shoes. Amru elabir. Only in the city you shouldn't wear shoes. When you're traveling, when you're not around with anybody, then you need shoes to wear. You know, practically speaking, mutter permitted. Okay, so what do we mean? Yotzel that if you're out on the road, no, you put on shoes. As soon as you come into town, chayil should move them. The same thing applies to menuda. The acherim, and the same thing applies to avel. So we see what. That the chedim and avel also allowed to wear shoes and the road, but in the city shouldn't wear shoes. Clearly, that a menuda is the same thing as the 13 fasts. So like an avel, my lavakula and all the details there. There are other dinim there. Who says talking about shoes? Maybe it's about wrapping the face. So therefore, we have no proof that a menuda is not allowed to wear shoes. But say the mom is handled about the teku. So an avel not wear shoes. Other ones we're not 100% sure. And the shoes start from right after the kavura, right after the burial. Some people say only when you come back home. Some people say that right after the kiva you have to walk barbarous, you have to walk barefoot. But anyway, so we do it right after the kavura itself. That's when they change the shoes. Oval also betashmishamita. An oval is forbidden to have marital relations. You see what it says, first he consoled her, and then he had relations with her after he finished consoling her, after the period of Shiva, after her husband Uriah Chiti. During the Shiva, you're not allowed to. What about somebody put a chelim? Coming here. 40 years in the midbar, they were like all considered like in chelim. Yet we know they had relations because they had kids. So we see that even on your chelim you're allowed to have relations. Maybe the Dima Menuda Shemai over there they were outcasts. They were excommunicated by Hashem. Maybe that's more lenient. The kill, maybe it's more lenient and therefore they're allowed to have relations. But if you put in a chelim by a bezdin, which is stricter, I don't talking about it. Abaya, just the other page you told us that Menuda L'Shemaim is far stricter and we cannot bring any proof from there. In the case of the fast days where the drought, we try to learn dinner from these they can't learn. And now you're telling us that Menuda L'Shemaim in the midbar is actually more lenient. What's going on there? You're driving us crazy. Well, Amri, you said before Chamir. So Gemara says you're right. Svuki Mesapkle, Abaye in his mind, he had two ways. One way was learning that that Shemaim is stricter, and one way was learning that maybe the Bezdin Lamata is stricter. Therefore, whatever you're going to say, I'm going to be a devil's advocate and say maybe it's the other way around. In other words, there's no conclusive, compelling evidence one way or another. The time we learned. It says in Pasuk. He says over there by Mitzvah. It says that he should sit outside of the camp. After the Mitzvah is coming out of the terrace, now he has to count out 7 days. And he sits in the chutz and we learned before Allah means his wife, and he has no marital relations. So but having marital relations earlier on, the period when he was a memuchlet, when he was definitely a mitzvah, he's not allowed to interact with society. What about his wife? Then we said it all right. That he should be like in Chayda It says in the Braisa, they should sit out. This Mitzvah should sit outside of the camp. In other words, have no relations, just like someone who's a chedim, and just like someone who's an olim. But also and therefore, the Mitzvah cannot have any relation with his wife for 7 days that he's becoming clean. The ain't all at least we know 10 means his wife. It says, tell the Eden after Mitzvah, now it's time to go back to your wives. Shmamina, clear proof that a Mitzvah, the Mitzvah cannot have any relations with his wife. Says the Gemara, this is clear in the same price. That's like someone put a chedim. You asked before whether someone chedim can have relations. Clearly, he can. Does it say first the word that he cannot have relations like a menuda, like an oval? No, it says he's like an oval and a menuda, and he cannot have relations. In other words, he's like a menuda and oval in other respects. Now, the famous question: a menuda, no one's allowed to be within. We'll see in the Gemara later. Somebody's putting chedim. No one's allowed to be within their 4 amas. So if you're not allowed to be within their 4 amas, how can you have marital relations? So there's 2 general opinions. One opinion is that family doesn't count. And the other opinion is family also counts. Even the kids cannot be within 4 amas of someone put a chedim. But a wife is not family. A wife, ishtay kegufa, they're one and the same. And therefore, even though no one's allowed to be within 4 amas, she is him and he is her. And therefore, they're allowed to be together. An oval cannot send his kabbanas to the base of Mikdash. While he's an oval, he cannot send sacrifices to the base of Mikdash, because since he personally cannot be there, he cannot send sacrifices. Tanya, we learn. Shlomim, why is the Shlomim called a Shlomim? It makes peace between us and Hashem. But he says, "There's man shehu sholem." He learns when you are wholesome, when you're complete, when you're happy. The labor is man shehu oinin, not when you are depressed because you just lost somebody, a family member. So it's clearly that an oval cannot send korbanos. What about menuda? What about somebody in chedim? Mahu, can he send a korban? Sheyishla korbanos, can he send korbanos? It says koloisan shanim shahayu yisrael b'midbar. But no, all the years Eden were in the midbar, they were all out, they were all excommunicated, and yet Mishul Korban is saying they all sent korbanos. Amalei said again, same thing he said last time. Maybe menuda l'shamayim is more lenient, and therefore he could send his korbanos. But if you're menuda b'le'adam, if Bezdin labeled you and put you into cherim, maybe that's stricter. All about Dilma menuda shemayim shiny is different. Kill. It's much easier. So what do you mean easier? But you yourself told us chamim. So fukim is apple. He's not sure. Maschale and he quotes back and forth. Mitzayda, ma'u. She's like a mitzayda. Can a mitzayda send his kabbalah? Touch my coming in. The Tanya we learned. It says by it says in the pasuk what happens after he becomes toy. No, it's after the kohen gadol says to the Torah, okay, now it's waning and you are toy. Now you have to count 7 clean days and then you bring your kabbalah. So it says achat terasa shivas yami 7 days. Achat he should count himself 7 days. Achat prishasem. It says so. We're going to say that it's talking about. It says 3 things. Achat terasa. Then it says 7 days. And then it says he has to count for himself. So we're going to learn, talking about different things here altogether. The achat tarasa is achat prishasa menames. After he is tara, we're talking about stam, a person who became tummy mace. You got to wait 7 days before he can go ahead and bring his carbon. Shivas yami misapruloi, and then it says 7 days. He's pruloi, he should count for himself. What do you mean he should count for himself? 7 days he should count for himself. These are the 7 days that you count when you're a mitzvah. You have to count 7 days after you turn before you make a bunch. Then it says in the pasuk, it says, and the day that you come into the kodesh, in the courtyard, the shadas b'kodesh, serve there. Yaakov, you bring chatase. This is talking about a 3rd category. So we covered over here, somebody's coming mace. Then 7 days you can't decide, we're talking about a mitzvah. And then when it says in the next part, it says that when the day you come into the kodesh to bring a karachatas, we're talking about a kohen who is becoming a kohen and he has to be indoctrinated, so or inaugurated. So he brings a certain amount of serious, a special flower offering. And chata also doesn't mean here from chatas at all. It just means that you are cleaning out. You're becoming trained. Zu hu asidis efer shaloi. That a kohen hedyed, when you train him and when you inaugurate him, he brings a korban to Hashem. It's 1/10 of an eighth. And every kohen has to do that once in his lifetime. So this is not a continuation of somebody's coming age or somebody's going to say this is something new. Just a general mitzvah practiced by kohenim that, but what do we see from here? That you cannot bring your carbon until you finally became tired from the funny mace and you became tired from the Mitzvah. You asked the question from Mitzvah, why does the Mitzvah can send carbonas? Because you can't. Okay, right? Just like you have to become tired from your tumas hames, you have to become tired from your Mitzvah. For example, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says, "The boy yakri bisman shelo be rola krava. Bisman shelo be rola krava." That when can the kohen bring it only when he himself is suitable. That he cannot send it in. He has to be there, be able to bring it himself. Okay, we'll stop over here.